our esteemed VIPs, you may now all be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, our Tengku is about to take his leave as he has another event to attend to. Let's thank him by giving him a big round of applause for gracing our event today. Thank you so much, Tengku. Here. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor would also be taking her leave. Let's thank her again for gracing our event by giving her a big round of applause. Thank you, Puan Nurul. We'll see you soon again. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to one of the most important sessions for today. As you can see, the chairs are set up, the tables are here. So, let me now invite our speakers for today's forum. Dr. Narima Awin, may I please invite you on stage? So, a little bit about Dr. Narima Awin. She is a technical advisor for sexual reproductive health rights, and which is under UNFPA Malaysia. She's retired in 2007 from the Ministry of Health as the Director Family of Health. From 2008 to 2013, she has worked in the World Health Organization, WHO, as a regional advisor for reproductive health. From 2019 to 2020, she was the chairman of LPPKN. Right now, she's with United Nations Fund for Population Activities, UNFPA. The next speaker that I would like to invite on stage is Datin Lorela Chia. Datin Lorela is the president of Malaysia Association of Sustainable Supply Chain and Innovation. She is an esteemed entrepreneur with multiple ventures in conferences, exhibitions, trade fairs, business events, B2B marketing, and market expansion. Of course, if you're going to have a forum, we are not going to have a forum without a moderator, right? So let me now invite up our moderator for today, Ms. Wendy Fu. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her a big round of applause. Don't hold back your applauses. If you feel like clapping, just clap. Alright, a little bit about Ms. Wendy is that she's the founder of Summer and Peach, advocate for body positivity and women empowerment, accredited Enneagram coach. And through her brand, Summer and Peach, Wendy Fu has become a leading figure in Malaysia in the wear industry. Right? So without further ado, let's start the forum right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy. Test. Alright. Can you hear me? Yes? Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, MC. It is a great privilege for me to be moderating this Women Empowerment Forum with amazing lineup of panelists. My name is Wendy. I'm the founder of Summer and Peach. I'd like to kickstart this session with a little story of myself.
7 years ago, I embarked on a journey to start an online innerwear business. I was pregnant with my second child at that time, and I was deeply frustrated with the line of uncomfortable innerwear that was available. It felt macam it's not created for women by women. So I dived right in, and I took the matters into my hands. So it must have been the crazy hormones that drove me to launch a business while I was also on my way to deliver a baby and nurse a baby. So imagine a pregnant lady trying to pull out a stunt. So that was me back then. Now all the blood, the sweat, the tears, the anxieties, yeah, if you can name it, I've gone through it. Okay, long story short, that period of growth and self-discovery marked the beginning of my journey in championing a wave of body positivity movement in Malaysia. So it dawned upon me during the early days when we did photo shoots, yeah, that I had a choice. It is within my control to portray women as the unrealistic, polished women figure that society deems acceptable. Or I can also portray women as they are, in their natural beauty. So I took the unthreaded path. And along this journey, I've heard countless stories of how women suffered because of unrealistic beauty standards. During one of the events which I spoke, one lady shared that when she was just 11 years old, she developed an eating disorder after her father jokingly remarked that probably she should shed some weight. She was just 11, just a child. I've also had employees who confide in me about their struggles with anorexia and bulimia while growing up because they felt they looked nothing like the models on the poster, on the adverts. So whenever I record this kind of story, I still feel the heartache because what if one of those are my daughter? I have a daughter. So instead of being empowered to live their life to their full potentials, they are bogged down by all these social stigmas. And I know for a fact that these issues doesn't come in small numbers, they can be silent. It's a kind of mental prison that could trap people for years or even decades. And it's probably happening to one of the person that we know. So you can imagine when we chose the path down body positivity, and when we started posting real images of women, our followers were deeply touched, they were resonated, and they began pouring their heart out. Because finally they feel liberated from the feelings of feeling insecure. Now my daughter is going to be 10 years old, so very soon she's going to become a teenager. When I look at her, sometimes I see myself at that vulnerable age. I'm proud to say that I have brought about a change, however so small it is, for the women community in terms of body positivity. However, we cannot ignore the fact that discrimination, stereotyping, body shaming remain social issues, whether it is spoken or unspoken. Now with that in mind, I'd like to extend our first question to our esteemed panelists today. So, we can have the next slide. What does body positivity mean to you? And in your opinion, is it an important aspect in promoting women's empowerment? Doctor, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Wendy. Assalamualaikum. Salam sejahtera. Selamat petang. Your question is what is body positivity. The first thing you have to understand, this is a social movement. Shall I continue in English or you prefer me to speak in Malay? English. So it is a social movement that wants to respect and accept women of any physical attribute. Whatever your height is, whatever your age is, whatever your skin color is, whatever your eye color is, especially whatever your weight is. But later on I will put a caveat to that. So this is social movement, as Wendy says, that accepts women of any attribute, and it challenges the current concept of beauty. Kalau kita tengok Miss World ke, Miss Universe ke, mesti kulit putih, mesti rambut panjang, mesti pinggang ramping. So there is a certain standard of beauty that is accepted by the world. So this movement of body positivity challenges that, and you must understand that kind of social acceptance of a definition is also a reflection of power and influence. So wanita yang cantik, wanita yang kurus, wanita yang tinggi ada lagi influence atau power yang lebih daripada wanita yang tidak kurus ataupun wanita yang overweight. Yeah? So the next part of the question, is it important? Of course it's important. You saw the example we said just now, anorexia and bulimia. So there are many social, medical, biological implications or consequences of this social norm. So young girls, especially those with tiger mom, will want to be thin like Miss World, like Miss Universe. So they start not eating, that is anorexia, and they start throwing up to keep their body weight. And please remember there is also something called depression, mental health. So the definition of health, because I'm a medical doctor, kita mesti sehat daripada segi physical, mental, social, emotional. So if you are depressed and you are not happy with your body image, then you are not totally healthy.
Thank you, Dr. Narima. And Dr. Lorela, what's your opinion on this?
First, I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to address the room. I have to say I was very surprised to be invited to speak. For the longest time, I've never really thought of myself as a woman, if that's possible, because I've always tried to be good at what I do, so that was always gender-free, right? But body positivity is something that is oddly close to my heart. And again, all women are not one woman, right? So everyone is different. My issues growing up is probably a little bit different. So when I was young, thanks to good genetics, I was the beautiful one. Okay.
Still.
Oh, thank you. So what happened was, I was insecure because I thought of myself as very smart, and I always thought that I had a lot to offer. But nobody ever thought of me as smart. They looked at me as the pretty one. So sometimes I do very well in school. I receive awards. But you know, right before you go on stage, people are always telling you, oh, don't you look pretty today? No one ever said, you know, you're so smart. I'm proud of you. People always told me I'm beautiful. And that made me feel very insecure in a sense, because I never knew whether people liked me for who I am and whether people still like me without my packaging, right? Then a few years ago, I had a series of accidents and surgeries, a whole lot. So we'll take this later, you know, as a medical doctor, you appreciate it. But what happened was, due to all the hormone fluctuations and all that, I put on a lot of weight. I grew fat. And you know that, after I put on the weight, I realized that people like me still, and they seem to appreciate me more for what I had to say. And my confidence grew. And that in itself is the reverse of what most women face. But it is true. I think body positivity is something that is very personal to each one of us. All of us face it in different ways. Some of us might think, okay, I have pimples, so that makes me less attractive. Some people think that I'm short. Some people think I'm too tall. Some people think I'm too thin. But it's all attaching that weight on what you look like, right? And you know, we are always very, very harsh to ourselves. We always think that we are ugly, when actually the world doesn't see us that way. And you know, the second part of your question, is it an important aspect to women's empowerment? Absolutely. We as women have a lot to offer. It's not just in the way we look, it's not just in the way we feel about ourselves, but we bring real value that's beyond our looks.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. Let's give Dr. Lim and Dr. a round of applause. That's so true. We wouldn't like to be, praised just because how we look. What about the behind? Intelligence, you know, you as pioneers, as yourself, you have gone through so much. You know, we always hear women empowerment. We don't hear men's empowerment so much because we need it. Women have come a long way through the history, Yeah, overcoming many obstacles as yourself, I believe you have gone through much. So, can you share a personal story? Datin actually shared a little bit, but I'm sure you have more. How you overcame the challenges such as breaking stereotype and found your voice and self-confidence to become the outstanding leader you are today in your expertise field. Datin.
I am quite surprised with myself that I really have not suffered. I have not suffered at all for being thin or for being fat or for being. Of course, sometimes people look at me and say, "Why are your eyes like chinky eyes?" You know, I mean, but I never felt inferior for that. If at all, Wendy, when I was in school, I felt a little inferior because I was too tall, I was too thin, I was gawky. And you know, when there is a march past, I'm always in the last row. So I felt, so it wasn't for being fat. I was looked down, not looked down, I was people make fun of for being thin. But because I have the mic in my hand, I may not have this opportunity later on. I will use the time now because I don't have personal stories to tell. I am a medical doctor. I'm a public health specialist. I served as a policy maker in the Ministry of Health. I worked in this field for almost 30 years in the government. Then I joined the United Nations. I was a regional advisor for women's health. And now I retired from the United Nations. I'm back at the United Nations. I'm 73 years old and I'm still working. Okay, just a round of applause. Why am I talking about this? Whilst I support body positivity, all that you said, all that I said, it is bad. The current culture of accepting a certain type of woman is beautiful. You must be tall, you must be white, you must be thin, you know, you must have a waist that only 20 inches. That's bad. And we said earlier on why it is bad, you know, what are the dangers. That as it may, as a medical doctor, I want to warn you about two things. Number one, do not overdo this body positivity to such an extent that you endanger your health. Let's face it, we have other medical doctors in this room, I'm sure. Obesity is a risk factor. If you're obese or you're overweight, you're more likely to have diabetes, you're more likely to have hypertension, you're more likely to have heart attacks. So you may feel very positive, you know, your self-image, but remember, so I don't like this movement because this movement makes fat women be so happy about being fat that they don't want to change their lifestyle. They don't want to aspire to be thinner. So there is a health implication here. It is a risk factor. Whilst I said earlier on that, you know, the other side of the coin is people who have anorexia nervosa. I said two things. I can't remember what is the second thing I'm supposed to tell you. Okay, so number one, it is a health risk. Yeah? The second thing I want to tell you is about mental health. To de-emphasize the physical part of beauty is only half of the battle won. You must remember that it is being obese is a risk factor, and there could be other consequences.
Thank you, Doctor, for your encouragement and your words of advice. And Datin, what do you have to say?
Well, okay, so I shared my story already. But I have to echo my fellow panelists here. I think that this obsession with how we look needs to be balanced with how we are, right, as a person. So there is the health parts, of course, and there's the mental health parts as well. So I remember growing up, right, and thinking to myself, I mean, outwardly I was beautiful, right? I was the right height, I was the right shape, I was the right everything. But everyone was just seeing me differently, and that actually got depressing sometimes. I know it's difficult to explain it, especially when outwardly I looked the part, right? But, you know, I studied very hard. I love studying. I went to the best schools, but yet everyone was acknowledging me for my looks. And I did this social experiment. I called it the smiling idiot, right? So I would go for a function, and the whole night I'll just smile and nod my head. I won't say a word. I wanted to see if anyone noticed that I wasn't really there. And most of the time, 9 times out of 10, no one noticed anything different. And that in itself is depressing. Number one, because no one really saw me. And number two, because it seems to be the role that the woman is assigned to. You know, you're the beautiful one that smiles and nods. You never, all the way down, of course, you never have an opinion, because that disrupts things. And you're just there as the ornament. You see, so that was very difficult to reconcile, because my mom, you know, she taught us to be smart and to learn and to be our own person, never to try to find a good husband, you know, but to be our own person. So that was very difficult. And I'm not quite sure when things started to change for me, but I have to say during this pandemic, things moved a lot, because we saw women as, you know, being more resilient. Many times women are the ones that just had to do something, right? And that in itself, I thought was very good. Today we are able to talk about a lot of different things without really addressing women and shaming women for how we look. And I think that's a very big step forward.
Thank you, Datin. Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, like I said, women have gone through a lot. I'm sure that's just a little story that you have. There must have been more. But I believe our women audience here learn a lot just by you sharing just a little bit more, other than looking good and taking a nice picture. So we really appreciate your honesty in sharing what you've gone through. Now, I'd like to ask from your point of view, what can women bring to the table? Yeah, in any place, other than rendangs and curries, yeah, I'm sure it's amazing as it is. We always bring that to the table, food, right? But what are the distinct qualities and positive impacts can women bring to an organization, especially when holding leadership roles?
This one, let me go first.
Sure.
First of all, I want to say Chef Zhang will beg to disagree, okay? Because he brings excellent rendang to the table.
Yes.
But, so I was asked this exact same question recently at the ASEAN Engineering Digital Transformation Conference. Now, first of all, again, I want to say that not all women are the same woman, so we all bring different things, right? So it's a little bit unfair to like lump all women into one. But there is this thing where women are generally, not all, but generally more compassionate. And the way that we have been brought up, we are usually more attuned to social intricacies, because we're the ones that, you know, since we're small, we are taught to understand the other person, to be more mindful of how others feel, right? So how this translates to a business context is that in today's day and age, we are more customer-centric in many of the things that we do. Gone are the days where the boss decides what I want to do and the salesman goes out there to sell. Today we talk about being more data-driven, being more customer-centric. So our customer and what they want is more important. Now, I mean, just asking the audience, right? Who do you think is able to understand customers better? Who do you think is able to understand the other person better? Show of hands, yeah? Who says men and who says women? Who says men understand people better? Who says women understand people better? There you have it.
Even the men raised their hand.
So that's what we bring to the table.
Thank you, Datin. Thank you, Datin. And Doctor?
A woman plays so many roles. So what a woman can bring to the table will depend on the role that she plays. You could be just an ordinary woman, as an individual, as a family member, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter-in-law. What you can do is to be aware, to attend functions like this, to know the concept of body positivity, to challenge the social norms that are negative. So that's one role of a woman. You can be a woman who happens to be a social activist. Somebody mentioned Tini just now, Happini Zainuddin. Tini is one fantastic social activist. So women who are into social activism can also play a very important role by organizing, by being activists itself. Thirdly, women can be employers, can be owners of businesses like Wendy, like you yourself maybe. So as employers, you can make a change by having certain policies and activities in your company that challenges the old concept of beauty by bringing about body positivity and DEI. Finally, we talk about DEI. Second, fourthly, women can be policymakers. I was a policymaker as a government servant. There are women parliamentarians. By the way, the United Nations target is 33% of women, of parliamentarians should be women. Malaysia has not reached 33%. We are only at 14%, I think, right now. Some African countries have reached 50%, 40%. Rwanda has 60%. So women as parliamentarians, women as ministers, women as policy makers can bring a lot to the table. Then, of course, because that they can make national policies, I'll spend another 1 minute on that. What can they do? They can make these policies and make it explicit. It must be made known to all, semua lapisan rakyat. Semua orang mesti faham bahawa ini adalah dasar kerajaan. That we do not sideline women because they are fat or because they are dark, because they are short or whatever. So that is very important to make an explicit policy. I will sell my organization now. We in UNFPA, which is a body under the United Nations, we have a policy. DEI, that is diversity, equity and inclusion, is the heart of UNFPA workforce. At UNFPA, our aspiration is to build a world in which the rights of all, for the rights of all in all our beautiful diversities are respected and protected, and no one is left behind. We have this tagline in the United Nations: no one is left behind. Building an inclusive UNFPA, building a more equal society begins with each of us. So it's very important to have this kind of policies explicitly, preferably written down and put on the walls of your office, that we in this company, we respect. So what is DEI? DEI, diversity, equality and inclusiveness, which I think Yang Mulia Tengku Hishamuddin mentioned in his speech early on, and he mentioned it very clearly. So these are very, very important concepts. One of the things that you can do reward and punishment. If you have an employee who is so good in promoting DEI, you can give him an award. You can punish your employee who does body shaming. We in United Nations, if we attend a meeting, sometimes I feel bad for the staff. Dia bukan berniat jahat, dia bukan nak menghina, tetapi like I give you an example. Somebody was asking her one day, Komati, can you tell us who are you? Whom do we have to go to solve this problem? Oh, you go to that girl in the RCO office. Which girl? The girl who wears a very nice tudung and all that. Which one? Pakai cermin ke tak? She doesn't wear glasses. Alah, yang gemuk sikit tu. Straight away my boss said, you see gemuk? Please stop doing that. So she was scolded there and then. So body shaming must be punished. So you as employers have a role to play. Make the policies, make very specific policies. You can even have a legal instrument. Like I said, we can have a law for that. But I think for body shaming, we should have a law. And you can make guidelines. So there are many things that you can teach your employees, and you can discipline your employees. But again, I like to remind you again, like I warned you earlier on, you must not. There is a difference between positivity. I agree with you, Wendy. Body positivity, I'm all for it. It's different from fat acceptance. That means you accept being fat as normal. That shouldn't be. Because being fat is a risk factor to health.
Understood. The health concern, Doctor, is really concerned of all our health. Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, let's give Tatin and Doctor a round of applause first. Right. So statistics shows that having women on board brings long-term beneficial outcomes to organizations, right? So you mentioned DEI, inclusivity should start with having women, like 33%, that's a very good bar line that we should all aim, and having policies that you mentioned. Now, I also heard this sentiment before, that don't hire women because then you lose money when they take maternal leaves. So what if the person have 3 kids that you lost is 3 times? So I hope, I mean, am I the only one who heard this before? So that's what I heard before for a few years ago now. So in your opinion, which you mentioned policies and initiatives, what other forms of support, are crucial for women to thrive in the workplace? Yeah.
I would repeat what I said earlier on. Women will need support, and this support can come in terms of legal instruments, can come in terms of policies, can come in terms of guidelines. But the woman, the empowered woman herself, can still do a lot of things. Number one, be brave. Be brave and be positive. And have the courage to talk about what bothers you, to challenge the social norms. So being brave, but being vocal is good, but I'm a bad example, I'm a good example of that. People say, not are you only of the wrong gender, why must you are a woman is bad enough, why must you be a loud-mouthed woman? So sometimes talking too much may not be to your advantage. And remember, I told you I'm 73 years old, I'm facing the double jeopardy. I'm living in a paternalistic society. Women have a subservient role. So I'm a woman and I'm old. So these two are jeopardy. Being a woman and being old is a double jeopardy. But saya berterima kasih, saya tidak mempunyai triple jeopardy. I don't have the third risk factor for a woman. Imagine you're a woman, you're old, and you're poor. That's triple jeopardy. So you can say, and you can even say, and I'm fat. So maybe being fat is also another jeopardy. So be brave, be vocal, be very clear, but do not talk out of ignorance. Do not say things that you have no evidence for. So please gather knowledge, attend functions like this, learn what is the reality, what is the evidence, so that when you talk, it is evidence-based and it is knowledge-based. And of course, finally, be realistic. There are certain things in this world that you just have to face, like what I said earlier on. Being fat is a risk factor. You cannot rely on
Doctor, first of all, I want to say that I don't quite agree with the 30% or 33%. Because we are 50%, why should we settle for less? Betul tak? Okay. So since when, why should 50% of the population become 33% in the workplace? So, yeah, and we are at 14, so that's kind of shameful. Okay. So, I think that to normal, but of course, I understand why Bursa Malaysia said 30% for public listed companies, to have women on the board. I think their thought process was to normalize the presence of women on the board. And for that, okay, it's a start. Now, I cannot count the number of times I've been told that I'm better off if I was a man. Loud mouth. My mouth got me into a lot of trouble many times. So I was always told that I would have been better off as a man. But I like to be a woman. It's more fun, I think. Right? I mean, having said everything that I have, I do enjoy being beautiful. I do enjoy dressing up. I do enjoy being pretty. It's fun. So I like that. But at the same time, I also would like to function as a professional and be recognized for it. Not just because I'm a woman professional, but because I am good at what I do, right? And to encourage more of that in the workplace, I think a couple of things need to happen. Number one is for the women who are already there to recognize that there are many women who aspire to be where you are and help them. Many of us, we don't have the privilege of going through education. In many families, well, if they can afford to only educate one, they will educate the son, not the girl, not the daughter, right? So a lot of women have had to go through a lot to even be in the room, to even get the seat. Now, I will say this here. There was once, and this was told to me by a man who was actually genuinely complaining. Okay, he said, "Do you know what it's like to work so hard and claw your way to the top for the last seat at the table, only to find that it was given to a woman?" And the first thing that I was thinking is that, do you not hear yourself talking? I mean, that one last seat that was given to a woman and you're complaining, why are you not going after the rest of the men at the table, some of whom may or may not have been gotten the seat out of merit? So I think it's important for all of us to realize that if you have a seat at the table, help the women who want that seat as well. And of course, for the women who want that seat, work hard. Recognize that, yes, sometimes we do have to work harder. But your journey is a lonely one because your workplace is full of men. Because, even if you hit the 33%, they are still 70+%. So be brave, be courageous. And if you stand alone, if you feel lonely, that's the norm, sadly. But be strong and you'll get there. Now, I know we are running short of time. I just want to share one tiny little bit, yeah? Now, I'm one of those people that is very greedy. So I get distracted so easily, and everything that I get distracted with, I like, and when I like, I have to own. So that's how I actually found myself having business interest in a very diverse portfolio. One of them is actually a fashion design technology school, and one big part of fashion design technology is metaverse. So one day I found myself being invited to be a speaker in a metaverse conference to speak on fashion in the metaverse. And I don't know why it never occurred to me that a metaverse conference would be in the metaverse, not Zoom. I never thought about that. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm not technical, I'm also not in the fashion business, so it was already difficult. I was already very nervous, having to speak to a room full of experts when I'm not an expert. And 20 hours before the conference, when we're having a rehearsal, I realized that it's not on Zoom, it's in the metaverse, and I'm not a gamer. And you have no idea how alone I felt at that moment, because all the speakers were, masters at what they do. So I practiced. For the next 20 hours, I practiced. And yet, during the conference, I'm that one speaker that banged into wall, banged into tree, banged into God knows what. Any one of you who has been a gamer would understand that. But I made it. And even though they laughed at me at the beginning, I laughed with them and they laughed with me, I still delivered what I thought was a good talk. And 1 year later, they're still talking about my talk. So, for all of you ladies who feel that you're alone and no one understands and your journey is so terribly lonesome, keep at it. I did it, banging into walls, literally. Keep at it, you'll get there.
Thank you, Datin. Doctor, you want to weigh in on it?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to that 33% of parliamentarians to be women. Two things here. Number one, this is by the year 2030, by the way, we only have very few years left. The United Nations have to be very realistic. If they set a very high target, how many countries can reach that figure? So you don't want countries to just give up on that target. So Malaysia, I think we are still only at 14%. So the United Nations, we call it the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. So one of them is parliamentarian seats, so we don't have any more years. That's the first thing. The second thing, Loretta, about affirmative action. I'm all for affirmative action, but I don't want to be given a privilege because I'm a woman. I want to be given the privilege because I'm a qualified woman. I'm a deserving woman. So when I was the first doctor in the Ministry of Health to be given the Excellent Service Award, all my bosses will say, Dr. Narimah deserves nothing to do about her being a Bumiputra, nothing to do about her being a woman. She's just a very excellent and responsible. I was respected for my responsibility and for my ethics and for being fair. I was a very fair boss. I always tell my boss, please treat me fairly. if I need to be punished, you can punish me, but don't punish me for something, for some wrong I have not done. I was threatened my boss, and when I retired, some of my staff cried. Datuk Narima has been the best boss I've had because she was so fair. So I am all for affirmative action, but it must be, but okay, but women have been so marginalized, have been so defeated that perhaps we need to give them the handicap. Even if they're not too deserving, we give it to them because we need to have a more level playing field. By the way, wanita umur hayat hidup, our life expectancy is we live longer than men. We live up to 76 years old on the average. Men live up to 72, I think. So in all countries of the world, hayat wanita melangkaui lelaki sebanyak 4 hingga 8 tahun. So women live longer, but women live longer to suffer more. And who makes women suffer? Men. So that's a harsh reality. So because the playing field is not fair, we have to have the affirmative action.
Yes, that's equity. We provide them some support so that we can fight equally, right? So what you mentioned, mentorship, anti-harassment policies, equal pay and promotion opportunities are all very important. The good news is we are witnessing an increasing number of women stepping into leadership roles and champion causes close to their heart. Thanks to pioneers like you, I'm sure all your staff who have seen what you did are very encouraged, right? So today, before we come to a close, would you like to share to our audience here, what advice would you have for women who aspire to change social stigmas, pioneer uncharted path, or become future leaders?
Yeah, like I said earlier on, number one, be brave, be realistic, and when you say anything, when you need to make a point, make sure you have knowledge. It is knowledge-based. Do not say things out of ignorance. So gather all the knowledge that you can have. Gather all the information that you can have. Because now there is the internet. You can Google for anything nowadays. There's nothing that you need not know, because knowledge is so easily available. So make sure that you have the knowledge. Be brave to voice out. Please remember that voicing out against any injustice is a good job done by itself. If you just dare to voice out, go to the microphone and say, this is unjust, this is unequal, this is bad for women. That itself is something that you have, either you as an individual woman, as a housewife, as a school teacher, as a social activist, as a parliamentarian, like in my case, as a professional. We all have our roles.
Thank you, Doctor.
I think yes. Well, actually, you said everything. But I'll add this on. I think for most of us, we always look at ourselves as the weaker one. We've been told that we're the weaker one. So I think sometimes understanding vulnerability, understanding where you're vulnerable, embrace that as a strength. You are what you are. We are maybe physically less strong, but in many other ways we are stronger. So don't try to move ahead by having blind spots. Understand yourself, understand what you stand for, what you really stand for, not what you think you stand for, or what you think you should, or what you think other people think you should. But understand yourself, embrace yourself. Seek out your vulnerabilities, address them, embrace them. Then, only then can you stand firm with who you are, and then only you can understand what it is that is close to your heart that you want to champion. Like, I feel very strongly about DEI, not just women, but also the special needs people. So it was something that I did not expect, but as I grew into myself, I found that these are the people I want to champion, right? And that catapults me many times into things that I never thought I would go into. So do that for yourselves.
Thank you, Dr. Ying. Why don't we give a round of applause for Dr. Lamela and Dr. Narima. Thank you for your empowering sharing for today, and I'll pass the time back to MC.
Thank you very much, our fellow speakers on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them another big round of applause. It's not easy to get three very, very outstanding women to be on stage here today to actually share their experience and to empower women as who we are as today. So let's move on to the last session right now. So ladies, I would like you all to just please remain on stage for a bit because we would like to present all three of you with a token of appreciation for being here today in sharing your wisdom. Right, so right now I would like to invite our sponsorship director, Megan Tan and Jun Chow, to be on stage to present out these wonderful women with a token of appreciation.
Tak jumpa channel iPhone TV.
Tulis baik.
Buat tarik.
Oh, tertarik tengah live ingat platform. Facebook lah. You. Platform ha? Ini saya tulis. Ini.
Thank you very much, ladies, for gracing our stage today to inspire all of us on how women can make a change, a difference, and an impact in society altogether.
Aku dah bengong dah. Nak kena balik
Now,
dah.
ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the event today.